Welcome to the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage webinar series in relation to the ACHKnowledge portal. Today we're going to be talking about submitting Aboriginal cultural heritage information. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to Whadjuk people and the lands for which I'm on today, and extend that respect and acknowledgement to Aboriginal people and lands around the state of Western Australia. To submit information about Aboriginal cultural heritage, a user would need to register through the sign-up process in the portal using an email. Once that verification of that email has happened and they've registered, they'll be able to come into this area where they'll be able to see their past draft or submitted applications. So for today's demonstration, we're going to be talking about submitting information about an Aboriginal cultural heritage place. So you click continue. So your information will be pre-populated as the submitter, and there'll be questions about whether you're a knowledge holder for this place and whether you're an Aboriginal person. If you're not, you click no, and if you are, then providing information about how you have those customary links to that place. This question is about whether there's already information on the directory that relates to this place. At this point, you need to provide a name for the place, and that's the name that will be used on the directory. And also the type, whether it's an Aboriginal cultural landscape or a place. And here you'll need to provide a detailed description of the area where that ACH place applies to, and you can use the map tool to enter into those details of where that place exists. You can also attach a shapefile. So you can zoom in on the area that you're wanting to report on. The accuracy of this boundary is important, and it will be verified when it comes into the department that the information submitted matches the area that's been provided in the boundary. And it's very important that it's only the area where this ACH place exists. And you'll need to provide some details about the justification of that boundary. The inclusion of buffer areas or management areas into that boundary won't be accepted, because the law talks, or the legislation talks about protections to the ACH itself and not to areas where the ACH does not exist. And that's the reason for these questions it's about justifying that boundary to ensure it represents the area where the ACH exists. There's also a question about whether that boundary needs to be restricted. There are some places which have cultural sensitivities where if it's public, it may create a risk to that ACH to harm. And if it is required that that location is restricted, there's the option to set that as yes. And the department will, on the public directory, which is through the mapping systems, the boundary will be a dithered boundary, and it will show the general area where that place exists, but not the specific area. This question is about the information that's been submitted and whether that is culturally sensitive information. There's no requirement to submit culturally sensitive information, but if it is, it will be treated in a way that that information is restricted. So if culturally sensitive information is submitted, some details about the nature of that culturally sensitive information will need to be provided so the department can manage that. And if requests to view the information are received, it won't be provided unless the authority from a knowledge holder who provided the information agrees to that information being released. Here you'd need to select a category from the existing category fields. If there isn't an appropriate category, there's an option to choose other as well. So these questions about the details of the place, and if other knowledge holders are known, you'd have the opportunity to provide that information here. And a description of the ACH. Also, who the ACH is important to. The legislation talks about Aboriginal cultural heritage being important to an Aboriginal person. So providing details about the importance of the place. Towards the end of the application process, you'd have the opportunity to provide details in attachments, whether they be photographs or maybe an attached associated report or a site diagram or any supporting information that describes that place. And before the application is submitted, the opportunity to review the information and a declaration and submitting that information to the department. A case number will be provided that's unique, that you'll have access to, and also, yeah, for future correspondence, that reference number stays with this ACH submission for its life cycle. Once the information is submitted to the department, there is a verification process, as I mentioned before, especially with the boundary and the information that's supplied and whether that matches. And also relating to whether it is important to an Aboriginal person or Aboriginal people, which is discussed in the legislation as well. So once that information is verified, it will progress to the directory, and once that process is finished, the information for the boundary will be represented on the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Information System, which is the department's mapping system that shows information from the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Directory. It won't show all the information, it will show the boundary and the upper level information, such as the title and the type of the ACH. So thank you very much for listening to this webinar and providing which hopefully has provided an overview of the types of information in the form for submitting information about an Aboriginal cultural heritage place. And we welcome your feedback. Thank you very much.